Well, first of all, thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And I apologize for the delay. So got in some traffic. But anyway, it's a pleasure to explain to you about our research in the field of new generation photovoltaics. And so I will be talking to you about two technologies. One is the dye-sensitized solar cell technology that has already reached commercial maturity. So as we speak, products are being sold on the market. Two specific markets: portable electronics, Internet of Things, and building integration, building glass facades that produce electric power. So we have two market segments where we have a unique selling proposition and unique advantage with respect to competitors, which are silicon photovoltaics mainly and other thin film photovoltaics. And the second technology we develop is actually a child of the dye-sensitized solar cells. It emerged from the dye-sensitized solar cell, and these systems are called perovskite solar cells. They are named after Lev Perovsky, a Russian mineralogist. And perovskites are minerals that were first detected in the Ural Mountains in Russia. And they have various applications in high-tech superconductors. And here a nuclear application was discovered, which has propelled the perovskites to levels that have now reached already 22% conversion efficiency. And so what that means is at 22%, the cells are more efficient than silicon photovoltaics. But the price is only a fraction because we use 1,000 times less material than silicon cells. Silicon cells have a thickness of 300 microns. These perovskite cells, 300 nanometer, 1,000 times less material. And we don't need the purity that the silicon photovoltaic cell need to get to high efficiency. So here are some fundamental advantages, which at the end I will summarize. But we start first by an introduction, and I show you some of the products that are now being produced in the dye-sensitized field. I will not say much about the physics. That's not a scientific lecture here. What we want to show you is how this technology was transitioned from the laboratory to a business for the first one. And the perovskites, they emerge now as a potential threat to silicon. So the first technology is not a competition to silicon. The dye-sensitized technology has its own market. It's very efficient in diffuse light. It beats the best photovoltaics like gallium arsenide in diffuse light and ambient radiation. So there's other application, new markets. But in the perovskite solar cells, we talk about a head-on competition. This technology is able to become a game changer and break through high efficiency, low cost, can threaten the silicon technology on the major segments, solar farming segments. So let's get going. I will not be very long, maybe 20 minutes. A lot of the slides are just illustration for applications, so easy to digest. This is one of the slides. This is our laboratory at the École Polytechnique in Lausanne, Lake Geneva. My group, I'm heading a group laboratory that has about 50 people. And we work on solar fuels. We work on DSC, the dye-sensitized perovskites, solar fuel, CO2 reduction for the catalytic. But we also work in collaboration with an institute from the NTU Singapore on light-emitting diodes based on perovskite materials. And so, you know the context. We have growing demand energy. We have pollution issues. We have warming. We have the oil peak and the nuclear accident. So this is a very bad mix, okay? And in addition, you know, the oil accidents, the warming is going up 400 ppm. This is not a talk about this, but I'm going to Singapore very often, and you see what happened last year. I mean, people couldn't go outside, pollution was so big. And so the investments in the renewable sector will massively increase in the near future. We're talking about trillions. I have to actually put my glasses on to see all these numbers. And so you're talking about trillions of dollars. If you look at this scale here, it's in billions, but you're hitting the 1,000 billion range. And so huge investments will come in the next 20 years. And the question is, where will they go? And can we capture some of that money to develop new breakthrough technologies that will not compete with the silicon sector, where we have a low margin, low profit kind of situation? A lot of companies in the silicon sector, they are like throat cutting. They're very close to break even or even losing money. And recently I have talked to an expert in silicon from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the United States. And that person told me that the polysilicon has to go up to $25 per kilogram in order to get the cost back that it causes to make it. So we're looking at price increases in the future in the silicon. So photosynthesis shows the way. The turnover in photosynthesis is 1,000 terawatts. So if you look into the power that is assimilated from sunlight by the green leaves and algae, that power is 1,000 terawatts. Our present consumption at the Earth is 16 terawatts, and it will double in the next 30 years. You see the dimension. You see how successful the photosynthetic system is. And so the dye-sensitized, also to some extent perovskites, they're based on the notion of a molecular absorber or pigment as absorber. So they're close to the photosynthetic principle. And so in a way, it's an artificial photosynthesis. And so we're talking about this technology, the dye-sensitized. You see, these are photovoltaic cells. You wouldn't think they are. And this black material is a perovskite that we will first discuss. The left one, dye-sensitized commercial applications, and then we move to the perovskite. But very briefly, when you look at the principle, how is that system functioning? You have a molecule like chlorophyll on the surface of an oxide, and so what happens is light comes in, excites the molecule, and then the electron is injected in the oxide particle. You collect it, and you produce power outside, and then you recycle the electron back to the dye. So this is one turnover. In 20 years lifetime, we have to go through 100 million turnovers with a dye. But it's feasible. And here comes the major discovery that was made in the early 1990s. If you put the dye on a flat surface, you get very, very low efficiencies. Out of 1,000 photons, only one photon will turn into an electric charge, an electron. But if you go to the particles, if you use nanoparticle films, we increase the photocount 10,000 times. So that was the major breakthrough that was made. And we applied for a patent, and initially there were a few more patents from our laboratory. But then the field took off, and today there are thousands of patents filed by industry in this technology field. So if you have questions, by the way, you can interrupt any time to the topic I'm treating. And so the cell looks like, see here, it looks like a tainted glass. It collects light from the front and the back. And you can see that aesthetically it's nice, and it's turning a fan here. So the light that was on the cell, this diffuse light, is enough to turn a fan. You can capture the energy that is in rooms or outside in diffuse radiation. And so this paper was published some 20 years ago, and it's now over 20,000 citations. So over 20,000 citations for that paper, a single paper. And why is it so highly cited? Well, it's the first time people have thought about three-dimensional junction. Okay, usually the silicon is p-n junction flat. This is a three-dimensional structure which serves to harvest light and turn light into electric power very efficiently. And you see here the applications that, for example, the Swiss Tech Convention Center I mentioned to you. This is one of the pioneering projects, several hundred square meters of glass facade, producing power from the light that hits the glass. But it's a look-through system. You can see the beauty of the facade, and it works very, very well under the normal daylight conditions. And in addition, it has an aesthetic appeal. So many architects come now and visit and see, wow, this is really a great idea. So more projects evolve now in America, in Singapore, in the UK. We have many pilot demonstration projects that show the beauty and the efficiency of this system. And so here's another picture of the conference center, which is very close to our university in Lausanne. And then we designed new dyes. I don't want to go into details. For example, that green dye looks like chlorophyll. It has a similar structure. Efficiencies went up. So we raised efficiency over 12% in a science publication. Also, this paper has been cited several thousand times. And we do fundamental studies on the properties of these systems. But the real interesting observation is we can beat silicon. We can beat silicon by a factor of 3 in ambient light. So that simple device that uses a molecular dye, 1,000 times less material than silicon cell, we can draw 3 times as much power in ambient light compared to the competitor, the silicon. And even the best photovoltaics, which is gallium arsenide, we can beat with this system. And cost-wise, the gallium arsenide cells are 60 times more expensive than this technology. 60 times. So you're not talking about 20% more. It's a factor of 60 more. And here are some applications for indoors, green walls, produce electric power, some outdoor applications. And now I talked to you a little bit about products that have been put on the market. You see, this is a roll-to-roll production plant that is in the UK, in Newport, and producing thousands of meters of this flexible cells. And those flexible cells are used in portable electronics, for example, for charging batteries, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. For example, here we have the backpack. It's a bag that is where you have the solar cell connected to a battery, so it's always charging. Even in this room, it would be charging the battery. So it's always keeping charge. You don't have to hold the sack in the back in the sun to get the power back. No, it's working in diffuse light very efficiently. And here's some products for computer, for the folios, iPads charging. So these are already on the market. The company is making good money. They can get a markup they can ask $10 per peak watt. The silicon, is $0.50 per peak watt. So the application is very important, the packaging, what you do with it. And so the British company just announced a major breakthrough with the kind of beacon they sell. It's called V-Cell. And that's also licensed. It's used for Internet of Things. Internet of Things, IoT, is a market that is very, very strongly rising, $50 billion market. And systems that can provide power to run sensor systems, and it's extremely important. You don't want to every time have a wire electrical wire to connect to these systems. Just wanted to show you also some memory. This is a visit of Al Gore to our university, and he got my backpack. This was the last one we had. And afterwards, I asked our president, I said, hey, I want my backpack back. He said, well, I'll get you one. So the person who gave to him this bag was our Geneva banker. And he didn't mention that it was my bag, okay? So also I have a good contact to Bill Gates, and he is interested in powering the keyboards with these dye sensitizers. Here's one keyboard powered. You can see the cell is flexible cell is glued, and he was very, very grateful. Invited me to Seattle, and we spent 4 hours together to discuss this technology and how it can be made use of in the Internet and of Things, and also the computer accessories. And so very recently, Bill wrote something in connection with the Paris conference, saying that yes, the future is actually this photovoltaic painted dye sensitized technology. So we have several projects with the Bill Gates Foundation to help the folks in Africa power things that in Africa there's no electric systems. Very often you have no supplies, and so we help with the Gates Foundation. We help some of the villages with powering equipment and also medical devices. So here's some other companies like the Japanese giant Ricoh. He's making cells also for indoor and ambient light applications. Another Japanese company called Fujikura. Stability tests have been done. They passed the stability criteria. Here's the technology to protect the Earth. That's how Fujikura sells our dye-sensitized solar cell. Some other applications like this table, and that's a table that charges your computer, okay? So you don't need to plug it in. When you get to your hotel, you don't have to look for a plug, or your plug doesn't fit. You just have the table that will charge, gives you the power to charge your iPad or computer. So these are marketed by a Dutch designer. Her name is Marianne von Appel. Some other examples. This is another company in Switzerland called Glass to Energy, making these beautiful modules. They're already selling. They sold 2 years of their production, and now they go to Portugal to build a much larger production line. And what do we have outside of this production plant? You see those panels. Now, what are these panels doing? Can you tell from the picture? What's happening there?
Charging automobiles.
Right. You got it. Yeah. This is you see the car thing here, electric car. So this is an electric car charging station. And believe me, I have a plug-in hybrid. It's a car from Japan, a Mitsubishi. It has a 50-kilometer autonomy. So I ordered one of those units from T2E. And they said, Michael, we give it to you for free. so we'll very soon install. And it's my car uses very rarely gasoline. All the city driving we can do on electric power, 50 kilometers. Even here in Moscow, how many people drive more than, say, 100 kilometers a day? Very few. So you could do the same thing. And actually, this is Geneva. If you travel to the airport in Geneva, you see those panels. They're also dye-sensitized panels. A Korean company, very active, very good production site. In China, we are starting to have the application. So, building application. So many applications and many companies. I mentioned the last one, the Swedish 30 megawatt plant And that's the Swedish king inaugurating the plant in Stockholm where they produce these solar cells. Now I'm turning one last slide. I show you the market evolution. So we're hitting almost the $1 billion this year, $1 billion level. So it's growing very, very strongly, and the building integration and portable chargers are the most frequently bought system. So now I change over to the perovskites. This cell is a perovskite cell. So the perovskite is an emerging technology. It's not yet on the market. Okay. But it has a tremendous potential because the cells have these extraordinary features. And I just start by showing the picture of Lev Perovsky, who gave his name to these minerals. And so they have very specific physical features. Let's not dwell on those. But what is important, it's really a very simple structure. You have the oxide scaffold, TiO2, the white particles. It's all printed. You print it on a support, the conductive glass. You infiltrate with a perovskite. You put the a positive charge collector on top, and that's it. So just look at this dimension. We have a few hundred nanometers compared to a few hundred microns for silicon cells. So these cells, the active material, weighs 1,000 times less than the silicon. And you think about applications, lightweight applications. I was contacted yesterday. I gave a talk at the Lomonosov University. Some people from the aeronautic division, they were very interested to have airplanes that would be powered for space applications. And so, as I said, we have seen this technology go up in efficiency, and now we are up at 22% conversion efficiency. And you see, that's the red entry you see here, 22%, and the blue ones are for silicon. So for the first time, we see this, the perovskite is beating silicon photovoltaics. And here comes some cost analysis. We have panels were rated 16%. Well, that's far below what we have already reached with the perovskite solar cells. But still, they use this as a comparison, a 16% panel perovskite, and the cheapest competitor is cadmium telluride. So you see the price. I mean, in the perovskite case, materials, the blue bar comes mainly from this collector, the hole collector, the organic material that can certainly be exchanged. The perovskite itself would be a negligible cost. So this material cost can come further down. Still, we have, at the moment, we are down to about 20 or 30 cents per peak watt, which would be 2 cents per kilowatt hour if you translate this into electricity price. Also, some stability work has been going on. Make sure these systems are stable. And so finally, I show you the comparison. It's very important to discuss this. So the first thing is we have a lower cost, and I mentioned this factor of 1,000. And so that's, of course, a driver. But cost alone is very often not enough. Although here, I mean, it's a significant savings. And so we have other advantages. The cells can be done by solution processing. And the energy payback time is shorter. So you don't have this high temperature annealing and recrystallization process for solar silicon. And that's a big advantage. We can use the chemicals off the shelf to make those films and get those high power efficiencies. So that's one advantage. Then we have I mentioned already the payback time. And we can also we can turn the band gap. We can make the cell the response in we can either have a large band gap or short band gap according to which halide ion we use. So there is a lot of flexibility in the optical properties, which is important for tandems. And finally, I mean, this is a key thing, higher efficiencies than photosynthesis. So let me finish by showing you an example of this, our technology. Okay. Here we have the fuel cell car and electric cars. Electric cars are now entering very strongly the market, okay, no doubt. Even Volkswagen today, you can buy a hybrid, okay? 2 years ago, no hybrids. Hybrids are really, they are now taking over the market, especially in Europe. In China, the pollution, I don't know about Moscow, what pollution issues you have here, but in cities, it might well one day become the only way you can drive. You have to use a hybrid. The government may just decide only hybrid cars allowed. That will certainly come in the Chinese cities. And I go often to China, pollution is terrible. And so we have a way to power those cars by renewable sources with the panels, technology I showed you. And one example was shown here in the World Exhibition, which this is the Austrian pavilion. And you may remember that President Putin also went to visit this World Exhibition. I'm not sure whether he saw the sun disk, but anyway, there was this big sun disk in the Austrian pavilion, and it's our solar cell panels. So they produce 16 kilowatt power in sunshine, and the power was used to charge the electric vehicles. Okay, you have the charging station, and the lady next to me is my wife. And you see what I'm having this green box. This is my birthday cake. This happened to be the day of the birthday, 11th of May. My wife and I have the same day birthday. So we got the present from the Austrians. That was very nice. And you see the car that is being driven on the panels that use our technology, the dye and pigment sensitized mesoscopic solar cell technology. So a dream came true for us. A system that were developed on the molecular scale in very small laboratory cells have now been scaled up and developed into something that is commercially viable and profitable. Thank you. Any questions?
Срок службы кремниевой батареи и
The technology, if you go to building applications, you have to guarantee 20 years. That's, if you cannot guarantee, then the client will not buy. So the glass panels I showed you, they have 20-year lifetime minimum. But the flexible, there may be a 5-year lifetime, because these flexible cells, they are not used for a very long time. Okay, so 5 to 10 years is acceptable. Well, as I said, the client wants a minimum lifetime warranty. And what? Oh, the efficiency. So I showed you that. Let's go back. So the silicon cells, here, there's an official table from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And you see the perovskite cells are above silicon. Now, for the dye-sensitized, we have an advantage in vertical positioning and outdoor that makes it much more efficient in diffuse light. And the group of Professor Oleg Shalarevsky and his wife is here, Ludmila, they have confirmed that. She can say that. That here in the Moscow climate, with the diffuse radiation, you get a better energy yield than with silicon cells.
А какой прогноз по КПД через 5 лет?
Деградация, да, есть у ваших?
As I said, the client wants a 20-year, okay? So if your cells degrade, you have to replace them. So it's your commercial risk, but today's producer can give a 20-year warranty. There is, you get a margin, you can have 10% degradation in 20 years, something like that.
Professor, there is another one question regarding what is the prognosis for next 5-year evolution of perovskite solar cell efficiency or the solar cell efficiency?
Okay. Yeah, good question. Yes, from the perovskite solar cells, we think we can easily reach 24%. Okay, matching the best single crystal silicon devices. So we have some programs, and also we have a joint program with the Moscow Lomonosov University, where we develop further the silicon, the perovskite solar cells to reach this very high efficiency level. There are many ways to improve them further. We know that. So it's not a speculation. It can be easily achieved to go from 22 to 24.
Перовскит редкий элемент, где брать в массовом количестве?
Well, you don't have to dig for the perovskite. You make it, and so the compounds you use are very amply available, like lead iodide and methylammonium iodide. They are available in large scale. There's no limitation on that level. And so they are cheap in addition. You can buy them from a commercial supplier. So we don't have to go to the Ural Mountains and dig for the perovskites. Actually, they would be the wrong perovskites. They are uncolored.
Скажите, пожалуйста, а почему мировые лидеры, американцы, немцы, японцы, корейцы продолжают строить поликремниевые заводы? Они никогда не слышали о данном направлении, или они все-таки верят в кристаллический кремний больше?
А можно я отвечу?
No.
Кто может ответить?
Well, they are aware. They like to use a perovskite as a tandem with a silicon. That's one application. I mentioned the tandem. So the perovskite can profit from silicon solar cells. They don't have to compete. But I personally think at the end we will be able to compete. It's still too early. This is still research, okay? But the technology is very strong. And from the point of view of research, I mean, we have thousands of research papers published over the last 2 or 3 years. Thousands. It's impossible to read all these papers. So it shows a huge interest in this technology. Now, industrial development is being pursued by a number of companies. I can give you some names, companies that develop perovskite solar cells. But they will go for the configurations that are absolutely stable, okay? So more research is required, to make sure that the top efficiency perovskite cells will also be stable over the 20 years. That needs more research.
Можно я по-русски чисто? Ну вот я работаю в компьютерной Корее в Сеуле. И это сказали, что это направление в Корее неизвестно. Вот Корея, она поставила рекорд при образовании лекции в городской СУВЦ 22%. Это сделано в Корее в институте технологий, технической технологии. Институте технической технологии. И они сейчас, весь их мастер, он перестраивается на перовскite. Они уже закрыли все направления, телефоны не существуют, но они не могут конкурировать с Китаем, потому что все компании сейчас разоряются, и все другие там, некосмольные элементы, как элементы, семинарные элементы, другие преобразователи. И сейчас они все сосредоточены на перовскite.
Вопрос был.
Yeah.
Синтезировать их очень легко. Это обычный синтез. Этот синтез можно поставить в обычной химической лаборатории. Если эта лаборатория высокотехнологична в отношении синтеза, органического синтеза, то вы будете всегда, эта лаборатория будет всегда в первых рядах. Потому что его синтезируют известным путем, уже нужны хорошие синтетики и хорошие лабораторные
Основа
никаких пределов.
А основа для этого материала это что?
А кальций
Это
тиреотрин
плюм у меня,
синтезирует?
плюм этот самый.
Свинец.
Свинец. Плюм
Его в Земной Корее очень много.
Да, свинец.
Не, ну
А
он
как
тоже
же?
что-то стоит.
Еще вопрос такой, можно вот про звездную батарею что-нибудь? Вы слышали?
Никому.
Про звездную батарею.
Uh,
Нашу технологию, которая была разработана, которая якобы была озвучена в 50 раз эффективнее, чем солнечная батарея. Ну, в свое время у нас в России тут было озвучено буквально 2 года за создание звездной батареи.
can I make a comment? I think Ludmilla is very correct
Который может работать в темноте на звездном ветре.
about the Korean situation. The same situation is in Germany. We have been approached by Siemens to collaborate on the perovskite solar cells because they see a new opportunity to compete with silicon, cheap silicon from China. If you want to go in silicon, good luck. The Chinese produce at a loss, so you will not make a profit, okay? But here's a technology that can beat silicon. So that's a promise we have. And so major corporations like Siemens are moving back. They had gone out of silicon. They're moving back into the perovskites.
А вот первый кальций тиреотрин, это же естественный минерал, или вы тоже его получаете синтезом?
Это просто структура.
Структурой?
Больше ничего.
Ну, смотрите, все равно закон физики о том, что с единицы площади можно сказать определенную мощность. Да?
You can make it very easy.
Синтез должен быть довольно массовым. То есть, опять исходное сырье. Первый вопрос. А второй вопрос чистоты материала конечного.
Микрофон просит говорить.
Ну, на самом деле, на эти вопросы ответы уже были показаны волковые технологии нанесения вот, на стадии, во-первых. Во-вторых, как раз здесь вопрос чистоты не столь существенный, как у кремния, совершенно не так. Об этом тоже вот, говорилось в докладе. Кремний требует высокой частоты для легирования. Здесь такой степени частоты не требуется. И нанесение, оно влажное, то есть это можно делать от волка к волку. Вот слайд такой был. Michael, I'm talking about your 2 slides. Explain again.
Yeah. Should I put those up, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, I put them up one more time.
The question was about mass production and purity.
Yeah. So the purity is in the silicon business. We have 99.99999, 6 nines. That's the minimum purity of solar-grade silicon. To make it, you need a lot of energy. You take quartz sand, and you reduce it. So energy is required to break the silicon-oxygen bond, a high energy. That's why the energy payback time is so long. Then you need more energy to refine and purify the lingos. And then you cut with a saw the silicon. You lose half of the silicon by cutting it. And so this technology, you just dissolve in a solution, your precursor. You can buy it from the shelf. You spread it out, and it makes you a film that is more efficient than silicon. If this is not a threat from the technology, I don't know what a threat is. One can show you in 10 minutes, we can make a perovskite solar cell, or say a half an hour. I could show it here in front of you and produce power with that cell. The same is true for dye-sensitized cells.
Вы знаете, все критерии, и толщина, и чистота, и вес, они все выходят в один параметр. Стоимость за ватт. Как можно сравнить данные солнечной панели с классическими?
Он был там с кадмием кремнием.
2 цента киловатт-час.
Да.
But I did. Yeah, I did. I showed you. I can go back. Here. Here I compare the peak watt cost with cat telluride. That's the cheapest competitor. Silicon is at 50. It's up there. It's higher. And so you can see perovskite can even be cheaper than cadmium telluride. And we have this large blue column here. That's just the organic hole conductor. This will be changed. This is for research cells. It's very expensive. And so this will be changed. Absolutely. So we have room to bring this down to a very small level. So it's at 16%, it's competitive. We also already have made larger cells at 19.5. So all this will be advantageous. We'll cut the cost down further.
Просто сколько квадратных метров вот такой панели сейчас?
Oh, 1 square meter. Yeah, well, if you take this number here, 15%, then 16%. That means that a unit that makes 1 watt in full sunlight costs you 22 US cents. Now it has to be 16% efficient, and so we can ask for the square meter price, and we can ask how much electricity that square meter would produce, okay? And so since a square meter receives 1,000 watts sunlight in full sun, 16%, it would produce 160 watts, and 1 watt costs 0.2, so you divide by 5 and you get about $40. So the answer is about $40, unless I calculated it wrongly.
$40 и мощность еще раз какая?
160 ватт.
160 ватт.
This is for 16%. So if you now go and say, my cell makes 20%, then the price comes down even further.
Можно еще все-таки спросить, вот когда мы говорим о себестоимости и о КПД перераскидывать, это лабораторные показатели, либо уже промышленное производство?
These data, which I show you, are from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And this is a module. It's not a small laboratory cell, okay? So, as I told you, we have already reached 19.6% certified with the larger cells, not just the tiny laboratory cells. But here the analysis assumes 16%, even though 19.6 has been shown and certified. So that's a commercial analysis. But they use the price, the catalog price of the compounds. The perovskite itself is very little, is up here, okay? This is the charge collector, the organic charge collector, which is the most expensive, and this part will be changed.
Промышленная технология получения вот таких ячеек Гейцеля, она существует, работает. Речь идет о том, что был найден новый материал для того, чтобы улучшить их эффективность. Этот материал дешев, он более эффективен. И сейчас он будет внедряться, но пока этот процесс не завершен. Поэтому, в принципе, промышленная технология существует, но она включает в себя новый материал, о котором, собственно, идет речь. И то, что тысячи статей в год, означает, что это действительно имеет огромный, не только научный, но уже практический интерес. И ближайшие точки, когда это будет сделано, может быть, несколько лет, может быть, даже меньше.
4 года.
Собственно, поэтому мы здесь собрались, чтобы обсуждать такие вещи.
Скажите, пожалуйста, вот выработка электроэнергии, она у вас протекает в зависимости от интенсивности солнечного излучения от температуры? Как это все зависит? То есть вопрос такой, 40 градусов плюс, 40 градусов минус, да, ночи и, собственно говоря, там солнечный день.
I can answer this. Usually the temperature for silicon cells has a negative effect. So you lose a half a percentage point for each degree Celsius. So if your cell goes from 20 to 40, you lose 10% efficiency. But these cells have a very low temperature coefficient. It's flat. They don't have that problem that you lose so much power by going to higher temperatures. This comes from the low band gap of silicon. It has a low band gap, and so there's a lot of dark current generated when you heat the cell up. So there is a physical reason for it. You cannot help it. It's a physical reason. And so the temperature is very insensitive to temperature. And when these cells are tested, they are cycled between minus 40 and 90, 200 times, to make sure they are stable under the extreme conditions.
Скажите, на вашу компанию выходил кто-то из Wacker, Hemlock, OCI или GSS?
Actually, I'm not a company. I'm a professor. So maybe a misunderstanding. Can you ask the question again?
Это компании, которые вложили миллиарды долларов в Кремний и продолжают вкладывать. Wacker, Германия, Hemlock США, OCI Корея и GSA или GSK Китай.
Yeah, the silicon companies are very interested in perovskites because they think the silicon cells can be improved from 25 to 28% by using a tandem coating of perovskite on top of the silicon. So they are doing very active research. We have been approached by SunPower from the United States to collaborate. There are many silicon companies that have picked up perovskite research. Not only because they think that they can improve the silicon, but they also feel it is a threat, a potential threat. They need to know about this technology. Okay, so maybe they have to switch one day to this technology. So the silicon companies are the most interested in perovskite technology.
15 лет назад, когда появились тонкие пленки СНТ, было такое же предположение, что классический кристаллический кремний в ближайшие годы умрет. Прошло 15 лет. Тонкие пленки занимают 10% мирового рынка. Все остальное монокремний и мультикремний. Не может повториться такая же картина с пероксидом.
I don't think so, because first of all the thin film technologies use rare elements. The six cells use indium. The catalyte use tellurium. These are very rare elements. You will never get to the gigawatt scale with this. So if you want to make...
Я говорю об аморфном кремнии. Я не беру редкий, я аморфный кремний.
Amorphous is dead. Amorphous is dead. It's not stable, and it has a very low efficiency. How do you want to compete with if you have 11%? The perovskite has 22%. So how do you want to compete with a vacuum procedure that is expensive? Forget it. It's dead. All the companies that make amorphous silicon are broke. So I warn you not to invest in amorphous silicon.
Себестоимость кристаллического кремния за 10 лет уменьшилась в 10 раз. Сейчас градиент чуть уменьшился, но все равно себестоимость ежегодно понижается. Что вы думаете об этом?
Yeah, well, this is true, but why? The Chinese government has subsidized the market. And I mentioned in my lecture, maybe it wasn't clear enough, that when I talk to the silicon experts, like from NREL, I just met a person who manages the whole research in silicon photovoltaics in the United States. And he told me, look, the polysilicon, the poly, not polycrystalline, polysilicon, it's the precursor of silicon. It should be actually 60% more expensive. It is not sold at the market price, so people lose money on selling it at this low price. Wacker has put $25 as a limit, a lower limit for polysilicon. They cannot make any money when they lose money if they go below. But today on the spot market, sometimes you can buy for 15, but that cannot last at large scale because somebody is losing money. Is it the Chinese government or is it, I don't know, who else? It's not sustainable. Okay? So the silicon has reached its limit, is not very profitable or losing money actually.
Мне также кажется, что вот эти технологии, они вызывают новое применение, где кремний не может быть применен.
Я просто хочу сказать, что кремний производится из металлургического кремния, а металлургический кремний происходит из кварцита. И если посмотреть на Землю, на структуру Земли, то оксид кремния является самым распространенным в коре элементом. Наверное, это не случайно. И поэтому кремний сейчас списывать со счетов, я считаю, это преждевременно.
Well, I'm not underestimating it. I'm just telling you, silicon oxide, yes, it's a lot. But that's not the photovoltaic material. You have to reduce it to silicon. That comes at a very high energy price. That's thermodynamics, okay? You cannot beat thermodynamics. And so that energy, that makes the silicon expensive because it takes a lot of energy to make those cells. The payback time is 2 to 3 years. For the perovskites, it may be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So there's a huge difference there. It's not enough to say there's enough silicon, there's enough lead also on Earth. You could make terawatts, thousands of terawatts if you take the lead. So the availability is not an issue. It's an issue for cat telluride and for 6, yes. They cannot go to high production. But this technology doesn't have a problem.
А скажите, алюминий как-то с вашей технологией все-таки пересекается или какой-нибудь есть benefit для алюминия?
Yeah, sure. So you can use aluminum as a conductive support for the perovskite. Thin film aluminum. You can build the whole perovskite cell on aluminum as a current collector. So aluminum could be, for you in the aluminum business, it could be a huge opportunity to increase your business.
А есть ли среди компаний, которые заинтересованы или инвестируют в развитие алюминиевой компании? Ну, даунстрим даже. Которые рынок как-то пытаются развить применение легкого металла более широко.
I know that the company is using metal foils for dye-sensitized and perovskites. Okay, both technology you can use metal foils, and aluminum would be the lightweight metal of choice. It looks to me like cost-wise it's all advantageous.
Но компании конкретно нет, которые заинтересованы в развитии.
Руслан будет первый. Нет, Евросибэнерго будет первый.
We have an aluminum company in Switzerland, and so I can ask them. But the perovskite is still a research state, okay? But it's an obvious kind of choice when it comes to scale up and module production.
Майкл, можно такой вопрос? Вот есть уже реализованный проект по строительству, допустим, завода, там определенной мощности, там выпуска там панелей, да, там по технологии пигментных фотоэлементов или перискитовых элементов. Интересует как вложение в этот завод, да, его мощность и срок окупаемости данного завода.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I can tell you that there are several plants that produce dye-sensitized cells. I show you one. I showed you, but I show you now again. Yeah. Just 1 second. So, there's a company called G2E in Switzerland. G2E means glass to energy. Glass to energy. You get it? Glass to energy. And this company is having a big success with the module sales. I mentioned to you they have already sold 2 years of production ahead of time. And they can get a big profit on these panels because for glass is very expensive in buildings. If I buy glass, I pay $500 a square meter for building integration. So they can offer this glass as utility glass that produces electric power. Okay, not as photovoltaic cell. It's a glass product that produces photovoltaic power. And so they are now setting up in Portugal a new, much bigger production plant, which they told me they can cut their cost by a factor of 7 by going to Portugal from Switzerland, because the wages are so much lower. And so I mentioned this, these panels to you. That's one of the products. But I also wanted to show you the roll-to-roll. And this, actually, this company is called G24 Power. And it has a Russian owner and an American owner. Okay. Yeah. And so they can make this on roll, flexible. Kilometers. I think they can make several hundred meters an hour. So the capex would be very low for this kind of installation because it cranks out. The firm wants the technology, once you know the technology. But if you're interested, I can introduce you to the owners of these companies, and you can talk in Russian. It's the Russian owner. Okay, so no problem.
The question is about the price and how fast you will earn something from this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the capex. Yeah, no, I know what you mean with capex, and I know what it means. You mean the time to break even. Well, the investment is much lower than for amorphous silicon. For amorphous silicon, we used to have to spend $2 per each peak watt installed, each watt installed. And the dye sensitized and perovskite, they are much lower because simply the equipment is simple. We don't need high vacuum equipment. We can spread with a screen printer the films. So what I recommend to you, look at those companies. Go and have a look at the production, and then you can talk to the owners and get a better picture. If you are interested to invest or to build up something here in Russia, which would be very desirable, then why don't you go to these companies and visit and have a look at the production plant.
Скажите, а на вас не выходила швейцарская компания, которая разработала самолет на солнечной батарее? Если ваши элементы поставить вместо классических, будет намного легче, и самолет действительно совершит кругосветное путешествие.
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. We had been approached by Solar Impulse, which is a Swiss company, and they wanted to use our dye-sensitized panels to put under the wing because they are so efficient in the diffuse radiation. Okay, and this is also a project which we still have active with them. But you know, the company has had some problems with the batteries. so the flight is still not completed, the first round of the Earth flight. So they first have to solve their battery problem. Then we can talk about. But it's a good idea. I was approached by a person yesterday from the European Space Agency, a Russian scientist. And he had a very similar idea.